This is the 15-inch MacBook Air, and this is the 16-inch MacBook Pro. Now that 1 extra inch screen size difference is going to cost you as much as it's going to cost you to just get another 15-inch MacBook Air. There are going to be other differences, but really, to me, that's going to be the major difference that's going to differentiate between buying one and buying the other. Now, I don't know about you guys, but to me, having to pay twice as much for something that's going to be a very incremental, very minimal difference from the 15-inch MacBook Air just isn't worth it. Now, there are other features that come with the MacBook Pro that's going to make it a little bit better than the MacBook Air, but if you really take a look at it, who is really going to be considering the Air even as an option? That's going to be the majority of people. Anyone that walks into the Apple Store today most likely is looking for a very specific, which is the most budget-friendly starter MacBook that they can use. And that's going to be students, that's going to be light content creators, and just maybe a parent that's looking for a computer to use for kind of everyday web browsing. And to me, that's going to be 98% of people. So really the difference that you would have to pay twice as much for the 15-inch MacBook Air just isn't worth it. And on the other hand, who's really going to be looking at the MacBook Pro? That's going to be all the heavy duty creatives. That's all the digital artists, 3D artists, video creators, cinematographers, all of people in that sort of realm. And to me, even that, whenever someone's going to be looking for a specialized machine, you won't really see them picking one up at the Apple Store or kind of looking at the models on the floor, because that person is building a custom one, asking for extra RAM, extra storage, and usually those are always just shipped to their home, or they're going to just be going to pick it up to the store, but they won't be out looking. And to me, the MacBook Air is for that person that you see kind of walking around the Apple Store, asking the Apple Bar Genius or all the other employees there which one they should go for. That's who this 15-inch MacBook Air was created for. So if you want the short answer, get the MacBook Air and keep all that money and buy extra accessories instead, like a USB-C hub, a docking station, a keyboard, or a mouse instead to pair with your MacBook Air. But if you want the long answer, I am going to be splitting up this video into 4 different chapters to speak about different features of these machines and how they stack up against one another. The first thing I want to take a look at is the screen and display, because this is the one that you're going to be using the majority of the time. You're always going to be interacting with it. And there's going to be a major difference here, which I don't think it's worth it to go with the MacBook Pro. So you can go ahead and check it out. Now, the MacBook Air does come with the LCD display. It's a Retina display, just like a lot of these Apple MacBooks. The MacBook Pro does have the Liquid Retina XDR display with ProMotion. So what that means is the Liquid Retina XDR display means it's a mini LED display. So there are going to be a lot more dimming zones. So you will be getting deeper blacks, better shadows whenever you're watching content. And then the ProMotion part of it means that it is going to be an adaptive refresh rate screen. So that is going to be better because it does kind of feel smoother. But at the same time, because it's not a gaming machine and gaming isn't big on the MacBook yet, the refresh rate going up to 120 Hertz really doesn't add much functionality to the everyday user, especially if you're just going through the web, answering emails, or just watching YouTube content. Now, the Liquid Retina LCD display on the MacBook Air to me is still a really great display. If you compare it to anything else from Apple, it's going to be similar to the Studio display, which comes in at $1,600 for that screen. That's the same screen that's on the MacBook Air, which might switch your perception of exactly what an LCD display is. Even my LG display that you see back there has that same screen. It's an LCD screen. It might not get as deep of blacks or as great shadows, but it still works really great for everyday use. Even video editing, it's not really an OLED display or a mini LED display, but to me, it still looks great. You still get a Retina display, and if you go for the 15-inch over the 13-inch Air, you're still gonna get a pretty large screen for something on a laptop. And like I mentioned before, the MacBook Pro is made for pro creators. So for those that are editing in HDR content, you will get up to 1600 nits peak brightness on all of the highlights in HDR content with 1000 nits sustained for the rest of the machine. But for all other content, which is web browsing, email, all of that stuff that every single person uses, the peak brightness on both of these machines is up to 500 nits, which is the exact same that you see on, again, the Studio display or the LG 5K display, which that to me is pretty bright. It's bright enough for most settings, even being outside here in this Arizona summer. And honestly, I think it's good enough for an everyday use, especially for someone that's not going to be doing heavy editing on a MacBook Air. And speaking about using these computers outdoors, I want to talk about the size and weight comparison between these two different machines. And the winner for this category of size and weight is definitely going to go to the MacBook Air. Now, as the name suggests, the MacBook Air, it is going to be really light. It is coming in at 3.3 pounds for the 15-inch MacBook Air, whereas the MacBook Pro comes in at 4.7 to 4.8 pounds. Now, even though 2.5 pounds doesn't really seem much of a difference, whenever you're carrying it on your back, it is going to make a huge difference, especially whenever you're taking it outdoors, you're going for long commutes. If you're thinking of getting one of these two for your school, you are going to have to remember that not only are you carrying the MacBook, but you're also going to be carrying binders, textbooks, notebooks, whatever else you need. So kind of saving as much weight from the computer itself is going to be highly beneficial. Even to those of you that just go down to a coffee shop, you commute, you ride your bike, or you walk, having all the extra weight does kind of add to, I guess, doesn't add to the functionality or kind of the feature rich of it. It just adds a lot of weight and heft to the backpack whenever you're commuting somewhere else. And not only the weight, but the size of the MacBooks is also very different. I mean, you do get an extra inch of screen real estate, but that also means the MacBook footprint is going to be larger on the 16-inch MacBook Pro. And then because the thickness is also a lot larger, it could make it quite difficult to fit it into an everyday backpack, especially if your backpack says only up to 15 to 16-inch MacBooks or 15 to 16-inch laptops. The 16-inch might be a little more difficult to fit in there because it is a little bit thicker, a little bit wider than the MacBook Air. I will even say that these past 2 weeks using the MacBook Air, whenever I switched over to the MacBook Pro, it was a little awkward because the change in weight was very different. And not only that, but it is also a little more difficult to carry. When you're used to carrying the MacBook Air, I can go ahead and palm it or hold it from the top and it doesn't feel like it's going to slip. But with the MacBook Pro, you really have to grip the MacBook or else it is going to start sliding down just because of how heavy it is. Now, luckily with that change in size, you also do get more ports and connectivity from the 16-inch MacBook Pro. So I will say that in this category, the winner would go to the MacBook Pro. And the reasoning for that is because you do get 2 extra ports that are different than what you get in the MacBook Air. Now, if you're someone that's going to be using the MacBook mainly docked at home, like I said, if you're getting a USB-C hub or a docking station, that's not really going to matter because either one of them you just plug in with a single cable and then you have all the other ports at home, which is one reason I recommend that if you are going with the MacBook Air, which you should, that you should get a USB-C dock because the 2 ports that you're going to get, you can easily get for like $30, $40 instead of paying an extra $1,500 to go for the Pro. But if you're even slightly considering the Pro, you do get the extra HDMI port and an SD card reader, which the SD card reader is only beneficial to those of us that are creatives. If you're using a camera that needs an SD card, that's a nice to have. That way you don't have to get an extra dongle. But it's not really that worth it. Like I said, you can get a simple USB-C dongle for $30, $50 and you don't have to overpay for that, or even for the HDMI port, which again, if you're someone that is already building out a desk setup, you most likely already have a USB-C dongle or a USB-C dock. So you don't even need a MacBook with an HDMI port because more than likely your USB-C dock already has one. And if you don't have one and decide to go for the MacBook Air and you still have a desk setup that you want to build out, you can use all that extra money that you save to either get a monitor, get some extra speakers, or if you just need a USB-C hub, you can even go for a more expensive docking station. That way you get kind of a Thunderbolt Extra edition that has all the extra added ports. But if you're going for something more simple, it doesn't have to be that expensive. Like I said, I use this Anker one that costs $35 on Amazon. I will be linking it down below. It's my favorite go-to dock because it's very inexpensive and it's useful and you can take it anywhere with you. Now, in terms of all the other connectivity from these MacBooks, everything else is the same. Bluetooth is the same. You still get AirDrop, and Wi-Fi is actually not really the same. But to me, I'm still going to count them the same. You get Wi-Fi 6 on the MacBook Air and Wi-Fi 6E on the MacBook Pro. Now, Wi-Fi 6E is one of the latest and greatest bands that you can get for Wi-Fi. But again, when you think about who exactly is looking at the Air, you definitely don't need Wi-Fi 6E. You don't need extra heavy speeds for someone that's just going to be using it for kind of document editing, mail, and that kind of stuff. But Wi-Fi 6E on the MacBook Pro is great for those that are professionals. You're uploading videos, you're kind of working with someone online, you constantly need to be editing on the cloud. That's when you really need Wi-Fi 6E. But for the everyday user, you most likely will never use Wi-Fi 6E. I have the MacBook Pro 16-inch, never use it. And remember that if you do want to take advantage of that, that means you have to kind of upgrade everything else around your home if it's even available in your area. So when you take it all into consideration, kind of the features to price comparison of upgrading to the MacBook Pro just isn't there. I mean, the XDR display really is pretty good. It looks great, I'm not gonna lie, but it's not twice the price worth it. The ports, again, not twice the price worth it, especially when you can get a USB-C hub that adds it all in just for $30. You also get a larger display, which again, I don't really think it's worth it. The 15-inch is plenty big and it fits in all the backpacks. It's lightweight to carry. And if you're going to be docking it at home, you shouldn't really care about the ports anyway. And besides, the 16-inch MacBook Pro, even though it's thicker and more made for the professional, it still doesn't have USB-A ports. So if all your devices aren't USB-C, you're still going to have to buy a USB-C dock, even for the 16-inch MacBook Pro. Apple just lately has done such a great job with their M series chips that it's not worth it to upgrade to a Pro device when the Air can just do the same. I even just told this to my wife earlier this month. I got her to upgrade to the MacBook Air, but the M1 version, because she didn't need the M2. She doesn't need all the extra features, and the M1 is good enough to kind of edit all of her reels, all of her content creation that she does for Instagram. Which is why I think that the 15-inch MacBook Air honestly is great enough for a lot of people, not just students, not just people that are looking for an everyday computer, but also for creatives that are using it on an everyday basis to edit short form content, some lighter long form content. The Pro is mainly for those that, again, are going to be heavy duty, long form content creatives that are going to have multiple layers, multiple plugins, everything running all at once, and are going to have super long form content. Then maybe the Pro is worth for them. So at that point, maybe it's worth it, but I still think that the Air is plenty good enough. I myself would have purchased the Air if it was me purchasing it this year. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. Do you guys think the MacBook Pro is worth twice as much as a 15-inch MacBook Air? Let me know down in the comments. As always, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed the content. Click here to watch another one of my videos, and I will catch you in the next one.